La Source des Montagnes is the story of a tiny tribe, the Pachapichus. They are some little festive creatures. They live a carefree daily life in sync with mountains. So when the mountains come, their oases rise and they are lifted up into winter climate. And the Pachapichus love the winter climate, which is also vital for them. But one day, the mountains stop coming and the restless Kinko decide to go looking for them.
La Source des Montagnes turned out to be an ecological fable. What guided us at first was the vision of a tiny creature, facing the emptiness of space. As we built the universe, we came to realize that the ecological disruption that the Pachapichus face is an echo to the one happening right now in our own world. Just like Kinko, you can't save the planet on your own, but he tries and gains great knowledge by doing so.
The starting point of the idea of the scenario came from a discussion with Benjamin. I told him that when I was younger, I used to say that I get moonburn, and in French it's called un coup de lune, literally, which, when you're already quite tired and confused, could be understood as a neck made out of moon. So this confusion pushed us to visualize a kind of giant stellar animal whose name would be like a moon, and it immediately became a space giraffe. And strangely enough, the animal itself never changed. It seemed obvious by that day and it still does today.
We didn't want the giraffe to feel like a joke, so we made sure the reveal was really progressive and tried to make the moment as poetic as possible.
We have imagined the Pachapichus as children. What is important to us in their character is their naivety, their insouciance and their enthusiasm. The fact that they are satisfied with what they have around them without really worry about the rest. Kinko is a bit different from the others because he is less serene, he gets this extra worry. For example, when they go to sleep after a mountain, he has this impatience for it to start again, to make sure that he will come back. And it's like he wants to fill a void or a space.
For the Pachapichus design, we had a hard time finding the right spot. We went in every possible directions. We are moving forward with another idea of what they were supposed to be like, but there were so many possibilities by that time that we produced hundreds of sketches. Starting with Sketchy, the first Pachapichu, we searched for credibility, but most of all expressivity in the designs. We needed any viewer to be able to tell them apart, but also identify them as a whole family. For that, the anatomy was one of our biggest challenges. Because just like many other aspects of our film, we wanted them to look simple even though they were not in the reality of the technical and artistical process. So we studied monkeys for a time, especially the gibbons with their very special arms that stand out in their silhouettes, and tried to replicate this in the Pachapichu style. What started with round and soft edges soon changed for a more angular design to contrast with softer parts of their bodies. The same rule of contrast was also applied to the whole world, from stones to giraffe, hopefully making it all live in the same graphic universe.
Set dressing part was quite a long step in order to arrange the most natural environment possible for the little creature. The oasis of Pachapichus is surrounded by canvas, plants and huge rock to give the impression of having a naturally enclosed village. Shade is important for Pachapichus and their environment. The Pachapichus sleep under the dome, which is their shelter, in the same way that plants don't grow anywhere in the village. They can be found in the shadow, under the canvas, or near the rock. Each element of the village structure is adapting to the tilt. It permits that the village follow the mountain that lifts it.
The art direction was designed to create a soft, colorful and naive atmosphere, and we wanted a world full of colors, so to avoid the cacophony we defined clearly different color palettes for each environment. We go through different settings, all provided by different vegetations. It reinforced the idea that Kinko really gets away from his village during his journey.
Shading the Pachapichus was pretty fun because they don't exist in our real world, so we had to imagine everything. For the body, we were inspired by materials like clay and ceramics because we wanted a really palpable result. And for the leaf, we looked at a lot of plants and mostly succulents because we thought that they have this translucence that is really interesting for our characters. The shapes of our characters are quite simple, and we really wanted to keep the easy reading aspect of our silhouettes. So when we added details, we tried to kind of hide them, and most of the variations of the textures are actually only visible with a backlight or when the camera is really close to them.
The lighting was very fun to work on, though quite challenging sometimes. We had a clear vision what we wanted from the start, an overall softness being contrasted by sharp shadows and warm light impact, and that alone pushed us to use light blockers in almost every shot of the film. I would say the use of renderman for that was a big help, as it gives a good flexibility in both physically accurate pictures and artistically directed ones. Also, to convey the time flitting by and the general movement of the world, we had to animate the light by hand in at least half of the film shots. It was a big challenge setup as we could not afford to render the shot several times just to see if the animation was working correctly, so we had a lot of preparation to do.
So what we needed for rigs was pretty simple. It was just some cartoon rig, and the only thing we wanted is to adjust the smoothness of the arms and legs, and to be able to do that, animators had control on the edge loops. Once the animation is done, we would use a tool we created to animate the UVs, depending on the edge loops animation, to always have a texture fitting the arm and leg and to avoid some weird deformations.
For animation, one of the biggest questions at first was, how are we gonna make sure that we express the right emotions for the characters? Because they have no mouth, no eyebrows, no ear, no nose, so they only have tiny hands and big eyes to express themselves. So we chose to spend a lot of time on the posing, trying to hit the right note, to find graphic shapes. We quickly came to realize that cartoonish animation, even though it was tempting, wasn't the answer, because it would have made the characters feel invincible, and we wanted them vulnerable. We also needed the animation to bring out the human side of the characters to the screen, so we got inspired by children playing, their naivety and spontaneity. There is also some form of poetry that appears when you animate on twos that I don't really see when you animate on ones. It seems like something's coming out of the missing frames.
For the animation of the snow, each step was created in plane shape to be more flexible. It took several tests to define what rhythm it should have, what shape and what size.
Music was one of the most important aspects of our film. In fact, it drove many creative decisions, such as the notion of rhythm in every plant's design. I really wanted to have Nicolas, my childhood best friend, to work on it, and he agreed so early on that he was already working on the main theme before the film was even approved by the school jury. I remember some people walking out of the jury's room already singing the Pacha Pichu Ha! The project had not even started that we were already feeling reassured to have him by our side. His investment during the production was amazing. He was there for feedbacks and ideas, and he was creating new songs and themes all the time. Also, we wanted the music to be as diegetic as possible, driven by the wind and the plants, and that was an important back and forth we had with Nicolas. Sometimes, he would give us some audio sketches and we would create designs upon them, and sometimes he would look into the dozens of plant sketches to put out new imaginative sounds.